everybody, and we are here with another episode of Love It or Shove It. And it's me, Irina Portnova, with my co-host Bruno Gel. And today we have dear guest Tobi Staples. Woohoo! Tobi, please introduce yourself again.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the episode of Love It or Shove It. And I'm an author, a speaker, and an empowerment coach. And I believe in the power of possibilities.
Beautiful. Woohoo! And we are so happy and thrilled to have you because you're such an active participant and we love your energy. So it's a pleasure to have you with us. And today we are going to be talking about impact of childhood experiences on adult relationship. And I know a lot of people don't even pay attention, not even making the links right between two, but actually it is important and it's crucial, right? Because the way we built our relationship as parents, as the partners, actually has the links with how we were raised and what exactly we were witnessing as we were growing up. Tobi?
Yes, that's very true. And people don't even realize it, that the first 7 years of our life actually construct us to be who we will be, unless we correct things. Guaranteed. Bruno, what do you think?
I agree.
Like,
because of how fucked up I am.
you know, I could mention a couple of my own situations if you want. That
Yes, of course, yes.
Look, I was born into a family that I was the fourth child, but my father was a heavy alcoholic, and the lifestyle that came with that. It was a very abusive household with a lot of hurt. So unless that's corrected later on in life, you don't find yourself connecting in the right ways because you learn from observing how your parents did it. And it does impact your relationships for the rest of your life.
So true. Yes.
You know, because like, no, you can go. Don't worry, you can go.
Thank you. Because in my case, I had like a very harmonious family that I grew up with. My mom was a leader, and my father allowed her to be a leader. And that's exactly how I was raised, and that was my way of actually looking at the life. Because I'm a naturally born leader, and that's exactly how I view it. And obviously there should be respect, there should be mutual communication and agreement between the partners. But for me, because I was raised in that family where, of course, there were fights, but there was no something like, I would never expect. My mom could just raise the hand on my dad, but it was never the other way around. So I was growing up with the idea that, men are very respectful, men are loving, and that was actually something that I had the values for. And that's exactly how I proceeded when I was having my own family.
That's good.
That's
really
great.
nice.
Like, that's very nice, actually. That's so cool. Because usually it's the other way around.
Pardon me?
No, I was saying like usually it's the other way around. It's like women, like they are more born into that idea that like, oh, men are all the same and stuff. I can't believe it's too much stuff or whatever. And then they don't like cure that idea of men, and they just end up attracting men like that, right? Which just fortifies that idea in their mind that men are all real when they're not. But anyways, like in my case, it's like, well, my parents got divorced when I was like 10 or 8 or 9. I don't even remember. Honestly, couldn't give a shit anyways. But like honestly, facts. But yeah, so they got divorced when I was like around that age. And then from then on, like it was just me and my mom. Obviously, my father got divorced from my mom. He was working overseas. So, like I barely saw him all my life. In fact, like there was one time I went like 3 years without seeing him, which was last time basically. So yeah, so like the more I grew up, like the less I started like seeing my father. So the more of a man I had to become, which I wasn't ready for it because I honestly I was shitting myself. I didn't know what the fuck I wanted. So like, and like so my mom took everything under her shoulders, right? And she like became like, I don't know, like 90% masculine, 10% feminine. You know, when a woman becomes really feminine, her words become so sharp. It just she opens her mouth, you're traumatized. Period. That's it. Like a woman, like a very masculine woman opens her mouth, trauma. Get ready to get ready to be spiritually scarred. Get ready to be all fucked up. Right? So like, you know, it's just like I think that like, but that's the thing. It's just like it's interesting because like something really rare occurred with me. Right? It is like my mom tried to um, shape me in a very toxic masculine way, right? Because she didn't really know what she was doing, right? Because I mean, and in fact, like when like last time I was with her and I had a conversation with her, and you know, like for example, the one reason why I decided to have a talk show with Irina is because she's a very hardworking woman, right? She wants what she wants, and she will not stop until she gets it, right? And that's the type of woman I love. But why? Because of my mom, right? Because she holds the same type of character. I grew up with that type of woman in my life, right? With that woman type in my life, right? Um, and you know that's the type of women I like to work with. I like to be friends with, right? And so on and so on and so on. So that shaped me, right? Because we were talking about shaping and all that stuff, right? That shaped me, right? The type of woman I like. I don't like much a woman, you know, like who is willing to be like super dependable on the guy without really having, you know, like something that they really like to do and making money with it, right? Um, for example, like a lot of men, they love women because like they're independent and stuff. You know, not that they're independent. Well, they love a lot of women. They love independent women simply because they're harder to get, right? With me, it's not like that. I love independent women because that's the way I was raised. Why? I watched a fucking woman, right? Like like 1 meter fucking like 80. No, no, that's not no, like sorry. 1 meter fucking like, you know, like 70 or 73 or whatever, like smaller than me, destroying the world completely, you know, like just like going out there and just boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, that's first of all, that's crazy. And then second of all, like how the fuck is she doing all this by herself? Like this is insane. All right, fine, yeah, sure. Like obviously she had a boyfriend after my father, you know, like um and all that stuff. Um and like whatever. That's whatever. But but like but still like she did so much for herself, right? And then she immigrated to another country, right? And from then on, like she built herself like slowly, step by step, right? And now like she's gonna start a side hustle, and I know that woman is gonna get rich because like she will not stop until she gets it, because if she did everything before, now she's gonna do it again. So it's just like, for me it's like every single time, like for example, like I have a superiority complex, kind of like not arrogance, right? I don't believe like, you know, like, oh, people, they don't deserve anything. No, people do deserve. I just deserve more, right? Because of my mom as well, right? Like people do deserve it, but I deserve it more, right? With all due respect, I deserve it more because of my mom, right? Because my mom also believed that she deserved more, right? And she stopped at nothing to get it, right? My mom also felt insecure that she wasn't be able to this, that she wasn't be able to that, right? And she did everything possibly that she possibly could, right? To do whatever. Same thing with me, right? My biggest fear is that I end up like working a job that I'll eventually commit suicide to, right? So I don't want that shit, right? So I'm gonna do my absolute best. I'm gonna go to bed at 3 a.m. I'm gonna wake up at 10, 11, right? Then I'm gonna repeat, boom, 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 right? Until I'll get what I want, right? But what I mean is just like all those behaviors, right, that I got as a kid, they are now with me, right? They are now with me. It's simple, right? Like, and all those little behaviors, right? I mean, very traumatizing as a kid, right? Because like, you know, like you're just sensitive and stuff. But once you grow up, you understand that like I'm more prepared for life itself than like somebody who didn't went through any trauma, right? Like, I mean, in the moment you're like, fuck, like you cannot believe this is happening to me and stuff. But then you learn how to grow with it, right? It's like you learn how to deal with it, right? And then later on in life, like all those experiences, right? Like you end up understanding that like I am able to tolerate more stress. I'm able to tolerate more anxiety. I'm able to deal with this better because of everything that happened to me. Because I wasn't ignoring life, because I was actually living. And if I wasn't living, then somebody would come in, then something, whether if it's somebody or something would come into my life, right? And I mean, whatever, fine, it will destroy me. But at least it would teach me on how to be prepared for a possible situation after, or to identify what type of people could do that, right? It's like, I mean, before I used to be like, yeah, I know this was a bit shit and stuff, but now I'm like, thank fuck, you know, like thank God, because that's the reality. Like, like now it's thank God, and I know I'm pretty sure like all of you are also that way, because then you know you obviously we all know that you know that shaped us, that made us, right, that created us, right, and obviously I think it's all meant to be, right. It's like we could have been born in another family, right? We just you know like we're fulfilling our kind of path, right?
Yep.
And
well,
yeah.
I have to jump in here on you, Bruno.
Yeah.
You know what?
Jesus.
In all what you were talking about with your mother, you know what? It's the same thing in how my childhood experiences, no matter what the situations were, my mother is a very resilient, strong woman who makes everything possible. So it was through seeing her and experiencing her as my mother that gives me the strength that I have today. If I didn't have my mother as my mother, I would not be the woman that I am today.
I totally relate to that. Same
Big time.
thing. And Bruno, even with you, like you're saying that, you know, she was strict and this and that. She did raise you properly in terms of like you came out to be a good man.
Yes,
right?
A great man.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, like not like absolutely. It's just like obviously like you know this thing about like you know like parents know everything and stuff. I mean, we all three of us know that they don't know like everything, right? And you know, one day I'm gonna be a parent, and I'm not gonna know everything. I'm gonna do everything possible to do my best, but I don't know everything because I'm not God. Neither you are, neither anybody is, right? But that's the thing. Like now we know this, right? But that thing of like when we grow up, right? That like that ultimate idea of you know like that ultimate idea of like we have to respect them and everything. Okay, fine, sure, but that you know they're role models. You know, like you go to home, right? You pick up on their behaviors, you pick up on the things they say, you know, and like you go to school and you say those things as well because you think those are the things you're supposed to say because they're your parents, right? And they're the ones who are telling this to do and stuff. You know, they're almost like your leaders or something, you know. And then you end up understanding that like throughout your life, when you start to really understand how things work, right? You be like, you know, like maybe if my mom knew about this, she wouldn't, you know, like she would have done this, you know. If my father knew about this, he would have done this. And then like you slowly start to understand that like they don't know everything, they just do their best. And when somebody does their best, you know, they really look like they know everything because somebody who does their best will always find a way. Will always find a way, always, right? Whether it's for themselves or whether if it is for, you know, their family, right? Their parents, their kids, right? A person who really wants it bad enough will always find a way to make it work, right? And that's why kids or even teenagers look at their parents and like, wow, like, you know, like my parents, you know, like they're heroes, you know, because like I would not know what to do in this situation. But that's the thing. It's just like I don't have kids, but it's just like when the will is strong enough, and it really like kind of like messes a little bit, like with your emotional side, and you're really able to like do everything and anything for it, things will happen. It will manifest. Let's just call it like that, right? Because that's the thing, right? I mean, it's just like it triggers a little bit, I mean, with women is maternal, but with us is paternal, right? And obviously our instincts are triggered in different ways because of our DNA and what we are kind of conditioned to believe, we're made for in society and to teach kids, right? But obviously, like what kind of parent wouldn't be like, no, I wouldn't do anything and everything to really kind of, like just like do everything and anything for my kid, right? So I believe that's why we kind of like, really have our role models twisted, right? When once we grow up, yes, they are role models, but parents don't know everything. That's kind of my take on it.
Tobi, thank you so much. Tobi, I wanted to ask you, like, especially in your case, like we understood that Bruno was, raised by his mom, and she has done a great job. And like he mentioned, with the level of the awareness, she did everything she could possibly do, right? So we all operate on our level of awareness. And just think about it, like sometimes we complain. My mom was also very strict. Sometimes we complain, but it's better than being like, the neglected child, or somebody who doesn't even care about, right? So it's okay to be, like punished, to be told what to do, because it all comes from the love place, because that's the way that they express their love. And this is so much different from, when the mother doesn't even care where the child, if the child is fed, and like it's a completely different zone. Because I had the client who had that issue, and that actually reflected on her relationship with the guys, because her father was beating up his mom, and she raised in the family where mom didn't have a word to say. And she was like petrified of the guys in the first place. And like each time she was entering into the relationship, she was always escaping after some time, because she was so traumatized with the experience, thinking that man that she's involved is gonna treat her the same as her father was treating her mom. So there was a lot of areas to be worked on. So like all these experiences are really having that impact on us, right? And that's exactly how we project going forward. So in your case, as you mentioned, your father was an alcoholic. How did that reflect on when you were ready to be committed in the relationship? What was your take on that?
Well, there wasn't just my alcoholic father, that because my father was a very strong, my father, I speak to because he's passed now a couple of years, but he was named as one of the strongest men in the Eastern Townships. They used to have these tournaments every year, and he several times took the winning, okay? He was a very strong, hardworking countryman that drank excessively because of his childhood traumas that he couldn't deal with. Now, he was a hero to everybody, but he was a horror story to his own family. He believed that love was trickery, and he believed that anybody that told him that they loved him, it's because they wanted something. So watching how horrible, like, when I say that I was hardwired for hell, I really was. The magnitude of what we had to live in that house was, it was something with my dad. It really was. But there's a lot of other factors that affected my childhood, like being molested at 4 years old. Well, that impacted my childhood more and my experiences later to come in relationships than anything. You know, there's a lot of things. I didn't know how to trust myself. I didn't know how to trust others. I didn't know how to voice what I felt because I was always told to shut up. I was not allowed to speak. I was silenced. You weren't allowed to talk to anybody outside of the house that was whatever was going on in the house. So that's why at my age now, I'm adamant about speaking, and people don't understand. But it was because of me being forced to be silenced all my life that now I'm going to speak at any cost about it. Because people don't need to feel like that no matter what you've lived. But it does impact your relationships big time. If you don't feel worth it to your own family, it's hard to feel your own worth. You know, if people don't take the time, it's really hard to have that self-love, self-recognition, self-validation later on in life when you've never had it. But it's so important. And you know, when Bruno mentioned about being a parent or parents knowing, no, they are just trying to learn through their cycles of life the same way we are. And it's funny because I can proudly say that with all the learning that I've done, I have taught my mother so much. And now being a grandmother, my parenting ways have been canceled and readjusted with conscious parenting for my grandchildren. So I didn't know when I was raising my kids. I didn't know better. I was still living as a result and a product of my life until you got to stand up and correct it, you know?
Yeah.
So it impacted. I had inability to trust people, inability to talk about what I was feeling, inability to even have a relationship properly with my own self.
Yeah. You know, because like, you know, that reminds me of me of my example. Because like when I was a kid and I was growing up, it's like, because you see, like, obviously my mom raised me the same way my grandmother raised me. Not so strict as before, but still a little bit much. But there was moments where, like, you know, like when I was curing myself, you know, like about, you know, like about me expressing myself. Now I express myself all the times. Honestly, we all know how much, honestly, I don't really give a shit. Irene is laughing, but it's truth, and Tobi knows as well, because when we hop on, you know, when me and Tobi hop on like lives and stuff, you know, it's just like, you know, like, I mean, it's just like, I mean, yeah, I mean, one day we'll get canceled or not, you know. But it's
don't put that out there, Bruno. Don't manifest that, Bruno.
Yeah. Absolutely free of that. Absolutely free of cancellation. You know, we all only have good intentions, and we'll always have good intentions. But like the thing here is that, like, you know, when you grow up on a strict education, right, by your parents, whether if it's your mom or your father, you know, like that idea that, like, oh, I don't know if I should do this, right? I'm hesitant, you know, and stuff. Hesitation, expecting a no, you know, like watching your mom or your father being a people pleaser, you know, all their lives, and afraid of confrontation, afraid of whatever, right? It shapes you as a person, because then you look at that and you're like, well, that's wrong. I feel like that's wrong, but, you know, if mommy is doing it or daddy is doing it, then maybe I'm wrong, you know. It feels wrong, but, you know, I mean, I don't really have reasons to trust myself, right? So, you know, I mean, I have zero reasons to trust myself, right? But I have every reason to trust, you know, my parents, right? And that's where you're like, people are naive, because, like, that's where, like, kids are naive, and that's where, like, the growth starts. Is that, like, the number one aspect of growth when you're growing up is a person putting herself or himself in a situation where they have to depend on themselves, right? A situation where like daddy doesn't know, mommy doesn't know, nobody knows what you, right? You have to go out there and you have to search for those answers.
Can I
Because
jump
that-
in here, Bruno?
let me just finish, because that will ultimately shape your own like self, like you know, like your own like thought independence, right? Your own like your thought independence, your behavior independence will be shaped, because now you have to go in search of an answer that nobody knows but you, right? And nobody knows what to do but you, right? And go on, jump on, Toby, jump on, destroy this. Go on.
Patterns repeat themselves until they're corrected, no matter what.
Yeah.
Why do I say that? Because I followed my father's footsteps and I watched how he dealt with his trauma, and it was with hard drugs and alcohol. So I did the same because I figured, well, that must be the way to do it. Okay. And that's exactly what I did. I spent years on hard drugs, years drinking every single day because I couldn't face my life. I couldn't face myself. I couldn't face the corrections that I had to make within the patterns that were already infused into me. It took a lot of learning to get past everything. As I sit here now, not a drug addict, not an alcoholic, empowered with the right consciousness level of thinking, I had to walk the deepest, darkest hell because that's what I watched my father doing. I figured that was the way to cope. So the patterns do repeat. No matter what anybody likes to say or deny, they repeat until they are corrected, whether people realize it or not. But people end up exactly like their mother and their father if they do not make their own way in life for themselves to create who they want to be. You do. You end up exactly like your parents.
Yep. Absolutely. Irina, what do you think?
Yes, I'm nodding. That's so true. And it just, you know, like, because as we are growing up, as we are watching, right, we are observing and absorbing everything, right? Because as kids, we take that information and we embody it. And obviously we act like our parents, we speak like our parents. And once we grow up, we think, since, you know, nobody was teaching us that there is help around, right? We only know that we have to get education, graduate the college, and then we are on our own. Like, build your family, do the best you can. Not too much education was around it, right? It's nowadays great. You have love coaches, you have counseling, you have all types of the workshops you can attend. There is that movement that people can join and actually explore. And if they are open to change the relationship for better, they always can do that. All it takes is just to have that, you know, free will and desire. But before, it was just like whatever you can, you just hold on to that. And it was your luggage, it was your baggage, right? And you walk in and you build your relationships, right?
Yes.
And that's exactly how it was. Because like sometimes we are in the situation with my husband, he is very, like, you know, short-tempered, like majority of guys are. And I always tell him to, you know, there are some things that you don't want to show your temper when the kids are around, right? Like, to really regulate your emotions. But unfortunately, a lot of people do not know how to deal with that. That's why it's so important to have the tools.
Yes.
That's why it's so important to be very, you know, aware about it. And the only way you can change your patterns, like you mentioned, Toby, it's when you consciously make an agreement that this is something you are ready to do.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you try it because of somebody else telling you you need to, you're never going to get it. Like, you have to do it for yourself. Like me, you get to a point where you get sick and tired of carrying the weight of everything else.
Yeah.
And that's what had to happen to me. I got really tired of not getting the most out of my life because I knew in my heart that I was better than anything that I've ever had to endure, that I was better than having to feel the guilt of what everybody else did to me, having to blame myself because, hey, that's not my problem if family is non-accepting, right? It's not my problem if they're judgmental. But we still have to carry this stuff. But we have to correct it. It's so important. Like, if I didn't do the corrections for myself, I'd still be on hard drugs. I would still be drinking myself to death. I would have never been able to come out of intensive care had I really stayed in those patterns. Literally. Yeah. So they do affect us. Our childhood experiences mold every one of our adulthood relationships.
It does.
And you know, I can say it loud and proud. I feel sorry for all the guys that I was with and had children with that were before me operating from the right place. Because I can honestly say that my relationships were not healthy until the relationship with myself was healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So true.
Absolutely.
So true. So it would be a good idea for everybody who is tuning in and listening, just, like to start asking yourself questions, right? What would I want to change in my relationship? What would I want to see more of? What would I want to see less of, right? And it all starts just from the questions, because a lot of times we go through the life without even, tuning into that, right? We are thinking of everything else, but how actually we are operating as a couple or as parents, right? And it's so crucial because this is actually, remember, this is the imprint that we are laying down for our children. And we want to give them a good example. If not for anything, at least to have a good explanation why we are as we are. And there is always time for us to actually, start thinking about it and see what else can be done for us to become a better partner and a better parent.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Irina, because, even my grown daughter, she finally saw me as an individual when she read my first book. Then, from that moment, she never saw me the same again. But she's also my biggest support system now. She actually, it's more than a mom and daughter relationship now. It is, she sees me and I see her, it's like unless we break it down to our kids, they really don't understand, and they really do need that understanding, because kids view their parents as just, mom and dad. No, let your child see you as the person you are, not just the parent you are.
Mm-hmm. So
important. It really does affect it.
Can I say something? Can I say something? Because I feel like I can give a good opinion on this, because I'm the youngest here, right? So I'm
you could talk only from the child perspective because you're not a parent yet.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm going to speak, right? So from the person who left not long ago from mom's house, right? So years ago. Let's just say that there's a big problem. Nothing changed much from 10 years ago. Yeah, there's more information, there's this, there's that. Well, still, whatever. But when, because kids are getting smarter, right? But generations get smarter, right? And obviously kids, they don't follow parents' words, they follow their example, right? I mean, Tobi did that, Irina did that, I did that, and I bet everybody here that is watching this, majority of people also did that. But the thing here is that, like, for example, there are many things that you see happening, and then when you're a child, you're like, but that doesn't make any sense. Like, she's saying this, but then she doesn't, right? It's like, how can as parents tell you do something like don't smoke, it's bad for you, and then you smoke? It's like you're wasting my time, you're wasting your time, you're wasting our time, right? You should lead by example. And when I mean smoking, I mean drinking, smoking, I mean everything. I mean whatever that it is, right? I don't mean just like smoking, I mean anything. It's like, you're wasting my time, you're wasting your time, you're no authority, I take you. Zero serious, zero, right? And it's like, and then that thing of like, and then there's also another thing that parents do a lot, is that like, a lot of parents, they don't say you did your best, you say you should have done better. And like, I get it, like it comes from a place of like, I believe in you, I trust you, I know you could have got the 100, I know you could have got the 100, you got 98, you could have got the 100. And like, I get it comes from a place of like, but for me it's like, that makes no sense. You're just giving reasons for your fucking child to hate you, right? Because you weren't the one who studied for it, right? And you weren't the one who like went on books, right, studying probably for something they don't even want to study, and they still got 98, right? And you're saying 100, right? It's like, just because the kid didn't get what you wanted does not mean it was bad, right? Because remember, what matters is the kid's fulfillment, not yours, right? It's like, for example, one thing that I always loved about my father is that like, was this, like, I'd say like, oh, I got like a C+. That's like good. And it's like, oh, fine, if it's good, it's good. And for me, that was like, yeah, because it is good, right? I mean, yeah, sure, I could have got a B, or I could have got a B+, or I could have got a 9. Yeah, fine, sure. But like, it's done, and it's not even bad. It's good. It's all right. It's a good grade, right? I mean, congratulations. For Christ's sake, you're not gonna hammer on a person, right? Because then it's like, okay, fine, like you're showing your kid, like, you could have done a little bit better, like, I know, I told you this and I told you that, right? I mean, I told you to pay attention to this. I mean, that's fine, but literally like not showing one single like bit of like satisfaction for your kid because he actually like didn't get a bad grade, he got a good grade or a very good grade, right? It doesn't make any sense. Like, always wanting something for your kid is good, but there has to be some limits. There has to be limits. Like, honestly, there has to be limits.
You know what? I think it all comes to the awareness. Again, when our parents were raising us, they were not aware of any other way, right? So it's not much to have the blame or anger towards them. It's they did the best from their level of awareness. When you understand that concept, when you become more compassionate rather than judgmental, I think that's the best place to find the peace. And another great factor, as Tobi mentioned, it's like you are always having yourself. You have to be in charge of your life, right? Especially like all these circumstances that shaping us up, whatever was happening in our life, right? And when we grow up to be adults, and then we understand that, okay, we are out of our, parents' control. Now it's up to us to shape our reality the way we want to shape, to become the person that we want to become. And that's the greatest point of it, because, I have a nephew who also, my brother divorced with his first wife, and she allowed my nephew to come at 10 years old. She declined to come to the United States. So my brother came just with my nephew when he was 10. And my brother wasn't like spending too much time to raise the child either. And you would think that my nephew would become lost. Instead of that, like, obviously I gave him the love, like grandparents give him the love. But the point is, he became so strong then when he had his own family. The bond that I see with his little kid, I swear, like I haven't seen it from the mother of that kid, and that's the point. It's just like you have that ability to become whoever you want, and just to blame ourselves for the experiences that we are going through, or to point finger at everybody else, it's the easy job. The more difficult job is to actually look inside and say, who am I and who I would love to be? What would be my self-image that I would be happy about? Something that gives me happiness, right? Not for everybody else, but just to say that, okay, sometimes you are raised in that kind of family, but then you could become the best parent ever for your own kids. And that's the whole beauty of it. It's just like, yes, we understand the patterns are going to be there, but it's your job to break those patterns and to change the patterns to whatever you want to do. And right now, everything is up to you. You have availability to coaches. You have availability to counselors, whoever you feel like talking to, but there is always help. Join the communities, but all it takes is just to make the decision that this is something you want to do, right? Because we as humans are very complicated, because there are so many areas we have to tackle, financial, parents, parenthood, being a good, partner, being a good child to the parents, right? We have to like kind of tackle everything. And also we have to give the time for ourselves, for our self-care, for our self-love, because this is where everything starts.
Yes.
Because if we can't take care of ourselves, how can we care for everybody around us? So when we come from that place that, first we have to fill the cup for ourselves, because only then, when our cup is full, we are able to give that love, we are able to give that care, we are able to give that attention to others, right? So we have to kind of, juggle everything around to make sure that we can fit everything into our life and make sure that we are living the best life that we want for ourselves.
Yes. Very much. And what's crazy is that's why my phone rang. My daughter, anytime I speak about my daughter, she calls. That was my daughter. This is what I mean about
connection. That's the connection.
Yes. And people think it's not real, but it is so real. And the patterns, the correction of the patterns, they are right. It's a must. It's a must. And you know what the pattern the most is that one person has to be in thriving mode and not survival mode. Anything you're doing out of survival mode leaks into everything else in your life, whether it's your parenting, whether it's your job, whether it's your own inner personal relationship. You got to change that surviving to thriving. And that's what I did, and it made the biggest changes. It didn't matter what my childhood experiences were. Because right now, honestly, Irina, I sit here I accept it all as learning and as a construction of who I've become. So don't take any of that experience away from me, no matter how brutal it was. It was all essential for me to be who I am today.
Absolutely. So true. When people understand the connection that each experience of our life is actually the curriculum for our evolution, everything was presented to us to go through that and understand that we are so stronger than we initially thought about it, right? When we overcome these challenges, when we deal with all these struggles and we come out on the other end feeling so empowered, that's the beauty of life. Yeah. Because then you understand that nothing can shake you.
Yes.
You become so strong that nothing can really depend on anything outside. That noise, like I always say, that noise can destroy you, because you don't care about the economy. You don't care about the politics. You don't care about people, what they say about you. You don't care if, partner tomorrow is gonna decide that he doesn't want to be with you, or, she okay, right? You become like so your own, empowered self,
Yes.
that nothing shakes you up. And that's what the beauty of the work that we are doing. That's the beauty of self-improvement, self-development, and self-growth.
Yes.
I'm gonna say something. We're like, because we were talking about like, obviously, Arina was saying that you can never like care for other people, or like help them, whatever, if you can help yourself. It's more than that. It's the example you're giving, right? It's the example you're giving. Because like a lot of people, they end up like deep down, like consciously, that your kid has nothing to do with the age and the people's exterior life. But for some reason, people are so emotionally weak, and this does not come from a place of judgment, people, right? I'm just saying like it is, and this is the truth. But eventually people are so emotionally weak that they bring their shit home, and who gets it, right? Who takes it, right? And I'm saying
The weak ones. A lot of men could throw it on their wives,
yeah,
and on their kids, because they only can deal with the weak ones.
Yeah, exactly, right? With the ones that they can say those things, right? But if you put somebody that cannot, if you put that against somebody, right, who is gonna take it, probably destroy you, right? Then you're not gonna do a fucking thing. Not gonna do a fucking thing, right? So like, it's just like, it's just one of those things where like, be a little bit more conscious, and the way you can do that is actually a way that like I deal a lot with people, and I tell people to do is like reflect on your behaviors. Don't be an NPC, don't be an unplayable character, don't be like another zombie, right? Because the world is full of them, and if you think zombies are going to remember about you, you're wrong. That's why they're zombies. They don't remember about anything, right? It's like they do whatever. Oh, cool. Oh, TikTok. Whatever bullshit. Like, and that's it. You just scroll down and see how miserable they are. Whatever. It's just like facts. Facts. But right. Like, reflect about your behaviors. Right. Like, think about what you're gonna say. Right. Think about what you're gonna say. Think about what you're gonna do. Right. And at the same time, like really like pay attention to the words you use, obviously with your wife or with your husband, but like especially with your kids, because like there's something that people have to understand, that like as much as like you're all related and stuff, you have nothing to do with each other. Zero. It's just like it's unreal on how like sometimes people have so many problems, it is impossible to not eventually have your kid know about it, right? Or drag your kid down with it, right? And it's just like there's no balance there, because people are trying to do everything by themselves or in partner or whatever, right? And I think people get more pressure from trying to look like everything is all right. People get more pressure from that, and people get less pressure if they didn't try to make like everything was all right? Because remember, you're building a human being. You're fortifying a human being by not showing how fucked up you are, but showing how much you can take. And then your kids will grow up knowing that, fuck, my mom, my dad, they were fucking warriors. They never hid shit from me. They always did it the best that they could do, right? I was the front line, right? How much they did, And if they can do it, I'm gonna do it too. In fact, I'm doing it now because I'm following their example, and everybody does it, right? So, like Toby, you were saying as well, like, so basically, you were saying in the beginning is like, it's like don't hide your shit from your kids, right?
I never did. That's
Exactly.
the
Right?
biggest change. I never
Yeah.
hid anything from my kids, nor do I to this day.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's the thing, right? It's just like show you as the way you are to your kids, right? Show them that there is nothing wrong in being yourself, right? And then, you know, deliberately either teach them, either like, you know, like talk with them, you know, sit down and talk with them about it, right? And like show them that you're there for that, right? It's like, for example, like if a father or a mother expects a kid to literally go to him or to her and say, I want to talk to you about something, and the kid is like fucking 8 or 10, I mean, like, bro, bro, you're completely like delusional, because that's not going to happen. And again, I don't mean this in the bad way. It's pretty cool. But the kid is 8 and 10. The kid is a kid. He's a kid. You know, he doesn't know how to start conversation. He doesn't know how to do that. You know, you have to go there because you're the role model. You're the leader, right? You're the idol. You have to go there. You have to go and talk to them too.
Actually, I'm going to jump in there, Bruno, because you know what? At 8 to 10, if you are properly teaching your child to communicate, yes, by the age of 5, they're going to come to you and talk to you about it, because my children have that ability to express themselves and look out when they want to, because boy, you're going to get it clearer than any adult before me ever gave it.
All right.
My kids, that's why I say there's a complete change, eh? My kids, they know, and they've known because I've made sure that they were in tune with themselves.
Yeah. And listen, like, no, I respect that. I do. But for that, right, you have to still teach them, right? Like, my point is like you have to teach them, right? You have to show it to them. You have to make the first step. You have to, and I mean, it has to start from like a young age, right? Because like if it doesn't start from a young age, like obviously the more a kid grows up, turns into a teenager, right? The more difficult it becomes for you to kind of get them from the root, right? Because the more a person grows up, the less a person less needs their parents, right? Because you know.
Oh, that's not true either.
No,
Sorry.
okay, cool. I don't mean it that way.
Because I still need my mother, and I'm 50.
Yeah, no.
And if my dad was here, I would still need him too.
Yeah.
We never
I'm
get
very
too
close
old
with
for
my mom.
needing
like,
our
me
parents.
too, and my father as well, and sometimes my grandmother, right? I mean, sometimes like when I go to Portugal, I still need my grandmother to stay there with her, and I get it. But what I mean is like not to fully not depend on them, but to less depend on them, right?
Yeah,
Go out,
for sure.
you know, have your own life and stuff, right? Prepare kids for the world, because kids spend so much more time outside than really inside, right? I mean, like kids spend more time in school than with their parents. Let's put it this way, right? Kids belong more to the government and the social system and the educational system that they belong home, right? Kids know nothing about their parents know nothing about their kids nowadays, right? They know nothing because they're not at school seeing the conversations they're having, right? They're nowhere but in their job, and they trust something. They trust an infrastructure, right, to take care of their kid as much as they can, right? But deep down, doesn't take care of shit, right? This is my personal belief. But to say that, like, and coming back to the communication part, right? Like, no matter if you're teaching, not teaching, whatever, right? There's bigger chances in a parent going there, right, and asking something. You don't look like this. You don't look like that, right? Because I remember when I was a kid, I didn't want to borrow. Like, I didn't want to, like, you know, not borrow. No, the word is not borrow. I didn't want to annoy. I say call it annoy. I didn't want to annoy my parents and be like, oh, you know, like let them, you know, they have their own problems. Let me deal with my problems, you know, like, and stuff. Like, I never really wanted to, you know, like annoy people with my shit, right? whether if it was friends, whether it was that's one of the main reasons I was depressed all the time, is because I never opened up, right? And honestly, like opening, like growing up, like, I never really had like a very, like, I didn't want to, like, annoy people, and then I didn't want to disappoint them, and it just turned into this, like, whatever, right? It just turned into this, like, kind of like, like profile kind of, like, whatever, where, like, I'm always smiling and I'm always happy, and but deep down now I wanted to die. Like, I just wanted to kill myself, right? Because I never knew how to really, like, nobody taught me how to express myself, nobody taught me how to open up properly.
Front door intercom.
So, it's just like, I think parents have to really step inside, their own world in a gentle, caring, kind, nurturing way, right? Show them that they're there, and really, like, really get it on, like, really, like, just but that's the thing. Don't start when you're 15, and clearly don't start when they're 17, right? Right? Because when the damage is done, right? Start when they're, like, again, like Tobi was saying, like 5 or 8 or 10, right? Even before that, right? So, yeah, that's kind of my thing.
Yeah, so let's
Sorry
just
about that.
wrap up the episode by giving some tips, right? I would say that it would be very wise for everybody to just look into their relationships and see, like I mentioned, what are the things that you would want your child to take on as they grow up and have their own families, right? So be more conscious of that, and just write the list of things that you want your child to remember, looking at your current relationship, right, that you have with your partner. What would be something that you want them to take on as they grow up and have their own families? It would be a good way to start. So this way, we become more aware and conscious on our behaviors, what we are saying, what we are doing. And there is always a way for us to improve, right? If we really want to do, we always can improve the communication with the partner. We always can be more educated if we watch together some educational films, or attending the workshops, or finding the communities where we can all grow together, right? Because it's very important. So there is no need to stay isolated and just deal with your issues, because we all can actually help each other out. Tobi, what would be your advice?
You know what? A lot of parents have a method of parenting as do what I say and not as I do. And that's completely wrong. Lead by example, because they're actually watching you and learning from more than they're watching than what you're actually teaching and telling them. So don't be a liar and then scold your kid for lying, because they're catching it from you. Don't allow them to see you doing things then that you're going to turn around and scold them for doing the same. If they can't trust you, they won't. Don't break the trust with your kids, because it really does affect your relationship. Your kids shouldn't trust anybody more than they trust you.
So beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, quick tip, Bruno.
Well, let's just say that don't bring your problems home. I know that well, technically nobody knows your kid better than you do, right? And I know that well, that's what we want to believe, right? And let's believe it, and hopefully it's really true. But don't bring your problems home, and don't watch your parents, right? Watch your patterns, right? Be aware of, like, wait a second, like, I actually just said this to him. I shouldn't have said this, right? I shouldn't have reacted like this, right? I mean, it's just a kid, or she's just a kid, right? Actually go there, because it's true, right? And no, you're not, like, making a big deal out of it with yourself. You did a big deal out of with your own kid, which you didn't have, right? But more than that, be aware of how your parents raised you, and see if that is the way that you want to be raised. And if you don't know how to do it because you don't know any other way but the way your parents raised you, that is all right. That is okay. You don't have to panic. You just have to breathe, right? Go on YouTube, right? Read a book, right? Go on Amazon, right? Buy a book about, like learning how to parent, right? Get a coach, right? Do something, everything, but repeating the same mistake, right? That your parents did, because with so much information that there nowadays to learn, right? You really do not have to repeat the same mistakes, right? And if you do care that much, then you will, right? So yeah, for me that's kind of my take on it.
Awesome. Thank you again for tuning in for today's episode. Thanks, Tobi, for sharing your wisdom and for your lovely presence with us.
Thank you for having me, you guys.
Absolutely, anytime. And till next week, everybody have a beautiful, beautiful week, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.